Let's take a look at Jacob, Jacob. The teachings that I have heard on Jacob all have to do with the fact that he's a supplanter, he's a deceiver, and but yet down the road, I guess God changes him or something. I wanna address that, because if we start out with a wrong premise, then there are some things in the Bible that we won't be able to see, and if we start with a wrong concept, then we also confuse the people. So one of the things that I've learned is you have to read the story for yourself, and the story itself will tell you, will clarify. When we hear a preaching, or we pick up a verse from here and there and try to make a whole narrative out of that, this is when we'll get into trouble. So Jacob, is he a deceiver, or what I've come to believe is he's actually a very humble man, and so this goes in line with Isaac and Abraham, people that were very humble, that were sensitive to God. But I need to prove that point. So let's take a look at Jacob. And you know that there was when Isaac is going to bless him, Rebekah hears a conversation that Isaac is having with Esau. And so Rebekah calls Jacob, and then there's a deception. This did happen. So we're getting to the point of where now Esau realizes that he's not getting blessed. And this is in Genesis 27:34. And Esau heard the words of his father, and he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry. This is Esau saying, said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, my father." And he said, and then Isaac says, "Your brother came deceitfully." This is Isaac saying that, and has taken away your blessing. Then he said, Esau, "Is he not rightfully named Yaakov? For he has supplanted me, he has tripped me up, Wakabene, these 2 times, and he took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." So he took away my birthright and has taken away my blessing. But if you know the story, you know that Jacob did not take away his birthright. We can argue the blessing part of it. So again, we have to read at who and what is being said, because Esau says this doesn't make it true, but this is the way that he feels. So when we read something in the Bible based on what somebody is telling you, it doesn't mean that it's because it's written. That's exactly what happened. It's called context. You have to look at the context. You have to look at where they're coming from. This is what I want to do. Okay, so that term, now we've already gone through the name of Jacob, and we know that Akab or heel is there, but in this case, I think what he's referring to is he's tripped me up, as if tripping by the heels. He didn't grab me by the heel, but it's like he tripped me. I was supposed to get this, but he comes in front of me, he takes my place. So this is the sense or the context of how that would be applied on here, where in the name Jacob, we get it simply means to grab by the heel, or mean that the name has a meaning based on the word heel. He follows after. He was grabbing by the heel, so they named him Jacob. Okay, so this is what Esau says, and this is what Isaac says. Your brother came deceitfully. So from here is where we get we apply to Jacob that he supplanted. He's a deceiver. Even though his mother is the one that is doing this, and Jacob fights back, or doesn't want to do this, but he does it eventually. So yes, we can say he was a part of that. If this is all that we have, okay. But I like to look at the whole story, get the whole narrative, because sometimes God will do something at the end that basically qualifies everything. I just want you to get to read the whole story in order to get the feelings. And because somebody says something doesn't make it so. So this is where I get most of my information from the birth of Jacob to and Esau all the way down. You see the birth of the sons, and on the side I'll keep track of some of the ages as it progresses along. And when I add the ages, this proves out the numerical sequences. Or when somebody dies, I can tell if it was pretty accurate. So Isaac here dies at 180 years old. Jacob at 147. These are items that the Bible gives you, and then you'll see Joseph at the end. It's at 115 years old. This is how I know that the information is accurate. So once we look at the Excel worksheet, then this is where I'm getting the information, so I can put it in some sort of a timeline. And in this case, it would be more along the lines of a chart in order for us to trace a progression. But I gave you the timeline so that you can see where my information comes from, and you don't think that I'm picking it up off of Google or something like that. But this is the way that I see things, and this is the way that I'm able to put them in order, and the dates and the ages help. So they're twins. They're both born at the same time, and it seems that right around at the age of 15, Esau sells his birthright, to Jacob. So Jacob didn't take it away, and I don't think that you can say there was deception if that's what you want to say. But the fact is that Esau gave it away. He sold it away, which is worse, than in essence the deception. But let's keep going. Then now, this is the one that is strange to many people that I've taught this to. So some 55 years later is when Isaac feels that his time is coming and he's going to die. And so he's not 20 or 30 years old. The way that we kind of teach it, he's almost 70 years old at the point where all of this is happening. They're in essence, they're grown men. Okay, and so Rebecca hears, and this is going back to the story, and Jacob answered, perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall be as a deceiver in sight, which is exactly what Isaac says. And I shall bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. In other words, he's going to figure it out, then he's going to curse me, and that's worse. Rebecca solves that problem for him. But his mother said to him, your curse will be upon you, my son. So I guess that kind of convinces him. Just listen to what I'm telling you. Rebecca is basically watching out for him. Now, Rebecca is the one that knows that when they're being born, or she has some problems when they're being born, and it says that the Lord tells her that the younger one will rule over the older one. So Rebecca is remembering all of this, and maybe like Sarah, maybe like Rachel down the road, they want to create the outcome. They want the outcome to come true. Okay, so and so far it hasn't. For 70 years nothing has happened, but the time is coming, so she may think that it's based on the blessing. Okay, so if we keep looking at it, now this is the blessing that Isaac gives to Jacob. So the question that I have for you here is, if you receive a blessing by deception, is God bound to honor that? And this is the problem that we have in teaching it this way, is that if you do something by deceit, then God doesn't need to honor that. But if we think that we can get the blessing any way that we want to, or through deceit, then that's just bad Bible teaching if you really look at it. So everything about this tells me, having studied the law of Moses, something is wrong. The way that we teach this is wrong. But this is the story. This is the way that the narrative is come out. But anyway, so the blessing does have some key features in that, and one of those is Isaac says, may God give you the dew of heaven, the shamayim, and the fatness of the earth, and the abundance of the grain and the new wine. Peoples will serve you, and you'll be a master of your brothers, and your mother's sons will bow down to you. And I don't, the mother's sons I'm not too sure of, because so this has to be, if this would be, it would have to be prophetic. And then the famous, curse be those that curse you, and blessed be those that bless you. At this point, his name is Jacob. His name is not Israel. Okay, but we apply this, down the road, and very, very famous, very popular, phrase that we use. Oreka arua umbarkeika baruch. Curse be those that curse you, and blessed be those that bless you. So this is where that phrase is found. That's why I wanted to show it to you. It's part of this story. But the only thing that I see is his name is Jacob. His name is not Yisrael. Okay, that's the only thing that I want to that I saw in that. But the shamayin, or the dew from heaven, it says that when the Lord gave the manna, the dew came from heaven, and once that the dew lifted up, then what was left there was the manna, the bread that they survived on for 40 years. This could be, you can look at that, you can apply that. Now, if you look at Isaac's blessing, Esau's blessing, it's the reverse of that. He does not get the dew from heaven. So there's some prophetical utterances in here. But again, I go to the point of, if this blessing is dominant in Jacob's life, then can you receive something by deception? So somewhere in here, I want to be able to answer that in order to be able to teach this correctly. So if we keep on going, then we'll see that he leaves. His mother tells him to leave. Esau says, Rebecca hears Esau saying, when my father dies, then I'll make sure and take care of him. So she, in fear for his life, she tells Isaac, and they send him off to her brother Laban. So in the process, he has his vision of a ladder where angels are coming down at Bethel. He says, surely this is the house of God. Then he makes an interesting statement. He says, if the Lord will take me, I'll make a vow. If the Lord will take me, of all that he has given me, I will return to him 1/10. This is before he had received anything. But this is where we get the concept on tithing. But we fail to teach at times that it is the Lord that gives it to you to begin with. And this is what I saw in the blessings of Moses, in the law of Moses. This is what I saw. You have to understand that he gives it to you begin. So you're just returning. Moses says, when the Lord has blessed you so much that you cannot take it all to the place where he has put his name, or you have to travel with all these flocks and everything down to where the tabernacle is, when you go into the land of promise, then you will sell everything. And so it's the blessings of the Lord that cause this problem, and you have to sell everything for money, and then you go to the tabernacle and there you buy. So that's an interesting concept when you look at the Good Samaritan, the story of the Good Samaritan in the New Testament, about the man that had money. Somewhere he's going to the same place where the priest and the Levite are going, and the Samaritan are going. So that's an interesting, concept. I'll share that with you later. So then we go to then he works for Leah. For Rachel and Leah for 7 years, and then he works another 7 years in order to get Rachel also. So in other words, after 7 years, he gets both of the women. Then he works another 7 years, and then at the end of the 14 years, at the end of the 14 years, he says to Laban, "Wait a minute." He says, "I've worked for you for 14 years." And I don't have anything to show for it. So we need to redo a contract. Or actually, Laban is the one that says, well, I know that God has blessed me because you've been here. So he says, well, what can I give you? What should I give you? And this is a contract that I want you to read to see if it's a part of someone that is deceitful. So Jacob says, now it came about that when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, so this is after the 11th child. And he says, okay, that's enough. And he says to Laban, send me away. Or shalak. Remember, we looked at that word. Let me break the contract. Let me divorce myself from you. Let me renew. In this case, it would be a renewing of the contract. But anyway, I need to stop. Send me away that I may go on my place and go into my own country. Give me my wives. Now, he had just finished working for them. Okay, so again, he's not saying, I'm going to take my wives. He says, give me my wives. In other words, release me from what I owe you. That my children from whom I have served you, and let me depart, that you yourself know my service for which I have rendered unto you. In other words, he's saying everything is paid up. But he's not demanding, or he's not saying that he's leaving. He's asking, in essence, for permission. Okay, so So the contract then is, and this is, he says this, and this is a little backwards because he does it, and then later on he says, by the way, an angel came and told me that, and this is what I'm supposed to do. So he says, let me go through all of your sheep and all the lambs and all the goats, these, and anything that is speckled or anything that is spotted, or the black lambs, let me go and separate those so that the ones that are speckled or spotted, which would be the invaluable ones, he says we'll be able to see. So in verse 33, so my honesty will answer for me later. In other words, when you come concerning what you're going to pay me, it'll be right in front of you. The ones that are spotted will be mine, the ones that will be speckled, and then the ones that will be clear or pure, or the ones that are you'll get more money for, those will be yours. So you'll be able to see I can't deceive you. So my honesty will answer for me later. If we'll do it visually, is what he's saying. So he's kind of putting himself into a corner if you really look at it. So he's getting the spotted and the speckled. You can clearly see there is no way that I can deceive you. I want you to look at his heart. Okay, so that word honesty is comes from the this word tzaka. Okay, and I'm looking at this word, and it means rightly, right? It means morally. Morally doing something right, being virtuous, doing the right thing, my honesty. But I'm looking at this word, and this is a problem that we have in the English, but in this word I recognize something in it, and TS is usually Z. It sounds like a Z. And what that word is, a Zadok. This comes from the word Zadok. Or one that was known as the righteous priest. You know this word by Melech Zadok or Melchizedek. Melech meaning king, Zadok meaning a righteous or the righteous king, Melchizedek. Okay, but I recognize that word. So it has the same root word. So that's, if you really wanted to look at it, he says, I'll act as a righteous priest. I'll judge rightly in all of this. But beyond that, you don't have to believe me. You'll be able to see with your own eyes, the contract that is before. So I don't see the deception that's in his heart. He's always running, and it seems like he's always being pursued. And then when he leaves Laban, he's going to Esau, and then Laban pursues him. But he's going from the kettle in essence to the pot. He's going now. He's afraid of dealing with Esau. This is the feeling that I get when I'm looking at Jacob. This is a story that I saw. But here you see that he's acting. If we keep going, then we'll see that he leaves. He finally leaves after. Now he works another 6 years, and I know this because he says 20 years I have worked for you, and after 14 years I don't have anything. So in other words, in 6 years, God, it says that he almost took everything that Laban had, to where Laban's sons were offended, and they're looking at him like, what? This guy's taking all of our stuff. So my point to you is, when you look at the numbers, he served for 14 years, doesn't have anything to show for it, and in 6 years, God makes him richer than Laban. So these are what are called the blessings, and the years will give that out to you. In 1/3 of the time, he gets more than what he did in 2/3 of the time that he worked, and so then he leaves Laban, and he says that he pays tribute to Esau, or he has a tithing. So this is where I'm looking at the issue with the birthright, because when Jacob leaves Isaac, when he leaves his mother and Esau stays with everything that is there. Jacob takes absolutely nothing, and he's coming back, and paying Esau for a guilt that he feels. And he's 91 years old. This is 21 years after the fact. So the blessings had nothing to do with an inheritance, which is, again, another thing that we're teaching, that when a father blesses a son, and then we use this. Well, this didn't happen, here. whatever he got by working, or in essence, the Lord blessed him, and he's coming in paying Esau. And I wanna look at that a little bit more. But before that, or I'm sorry, after that, they go and he leaves Esau. He goes and he settles in the with the close to Shechem, and then the prince of Shechem, or the son of Shechem, comes, and his now Dinah at this point. If go back up and look that after when he's 78 years old, and then in eight, or when he finishes, which is the 91, then from 91 to 101 will be 10 years. But at this point, if you go back to the speckled flocks, or when he renews a contract when Joseph is born, then Joseph is about 15 years old. That would make Dinah about 16 years old. This is why I like my timeline, because if you know accounting, if you're used to looking at numbers, if you're used to doing analysis on numbers, then these numbers pop out at you. So this is why the timeline. So I can tell you that, Joseph and Dinah were probably 16 and 15 years old. So Dinah's 16 years old, more or less, when she's violated. She could be 17, she could have been 14, but it gives us a guideline. This is the way that I prove the timeline, that I know that it's pretty accurate. Okay, so anyway, the prince defiles Dinah. So then the issue again, I want you to see Jacob's reaction. So Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter, but his sons were with his livestock in the field, and Jacob kept silent, didn't say anything until the sons came in. Now the sons, and you'll find out later, this is Simeon and Levi, number 2 and number 3 of the sons of Leah. Dinah is the direct daughter of, or their sisters. So to me, Leah had something to do with this, because Jacob apparently isn't going to do anything. He's 101 years old. He doesn't want to move anymore. He's not going anywhere anymore. So, but this situation prompts he has to leave, because what happens is, somewhere along the line they get it into their mind that they're going to deceive him. And to make a long story short, 13 Jacob's sons, which would be Simeon and Levi, they told Shechem, and his father, and they spoke with deceit, and they said, we can't become a part of you unless you and all the males become circumcised. And if you know the story, in the process of them being circumcised for 3 days, then they go and they kill them all. So then Jacob says, oh, what have you done? Now we're going to have to leave all these nations, all these people around here. When this story gets out, they're going to seek us. They're going to want to kill us. So it forces him to, and the process is Simeon and Levi kill the sons of Shechem, and then Rachel is pregnant with Benjamin. So along the road, when he's leaving Shechem and going now toward Bethlehem, that she dies, and she bears Benjamin. Some 5 years later is when Joseph, this would make Benjamin 4 or 5 years old, Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers. So this is something that's always happening to Jacob. Something always seems to be going wrong. And then when he talks again, or when he speaks, you'll see this in the story. Okay, so let's keep going. 3 years later, Isaac dies, and then the 7-year harvest, or the 7 years of plenty, begin. Remember, Joseph is already with the king, and then after those 7 years, in the 7 years, or when he's 127 years old, the 7 year of famine begins. Then again, he's forced to send his sons to go get grain, thinking that Joseph is dead. You know the story. So then we have Simeon being held for ransom until Benjamin is taken, and all of this happens at the hand of Joseph. So Jacob is 128 years old, doesn't want to go anywhere at this age, and again it seems like he's going to be forced in order to go. So finally, when he can't get around it, he says, and their father Jacob said to them, when they tell him the story, he's requiring Joseph is requiring Benjamin from him. You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more, and then you will take my youngest son, Benjamin. So everything from Rachel I'm going to lose. All these things are against me, so we have all felt this, but I'm just showing you this is not a guy that is deceiving or trying to connive. This is someone that feels like everything had always at every point seems to always work against him, and all of this is God working in the background in order to take him to a land so that this his family will be able to be in slavery, be able to grow to 2 to 3 million people. So the circumstances are moving him. While he thinks everything is bad, then he realizes it. In the end, he realizes he hasn't lost his son. Joseph is still there. Okay, so then and then Reuben, negotiates with him and tells him, if I don't bring him back, you can take my sons. And then he makes an interesting statement. He says, and this tells you how deeply he feels that if harm should befall him on the journey you are taking, Benjamin, meaning to Benjamin, then you will bring my gray hair down to Sheol, to the grave in sorrow. And that word Sheol is kind of interesting, that because this is one of the first times that we hear it mentioned here, and that simply now this is Strong's, or this is their interpretation. They're now going to call it Hades or the world. But I want you to, when you learn some of the words, I want you to see something in here. So Sheol is pretty close to a word that I had studied before, and that is Shaul or Shaul. So 7585 is Sheol, and 7586 is Shaul, or my name. Paul, which means to ask or to inquire. So I wonder if that Sheol doesn't have something to do with it will be required of you. It will be asked of you. He that believeth, he that believeth, he that believeth in me. He that believeth not, then something is going to be inquired of you. I haven't worked it out, but I'm just showing you where these words are pretty. You have, if you know the roots, then you can kind of tell that there's a meaning, because here they're giving you the religious meaning that it means. Okay, but he's saying, you will bring my gray hair down to Sheol, or it's going to be required of me in my sorrow. you know just a little wordplay that I wanted to show you. So we're going to keep looking at this, and then he moves to Egypt. He gets sick, and at 147 years old, he blesses the 12 and the 12 sons, and then and then he dies. And this is the story where he's talking to Joseph. Again, I want you to look at the context, and when you read it, you have to read it anew for yourself. So let's just follow the story. And then Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me, or Elohim El Shaddai, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz, or Bethel, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. And he said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous, and I will make you a company of peoples, and you will give the land to your descendants after you for an everlasting possession. And now your 2 sons, he's talking to Joseph, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Okay, Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim, double blessing. Manasseh is, for he has made me to forget my father's house, shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. So I'm going to take these 2 sons, and they will be as my 2 sons, Reuben and Simeon. Okay. As for me, when I came from Padam, Rachel died to my sorrow in the land of Canaan on the journey, and there was still some distance to go to Ephrath, that is to say Bethlehem. And then Israel saw, and now Joseph is bringing his 2 sons, and when Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, who are these 2? Now he has just mentioned Ephraim and Manasseh, and he's asking, well, who are these 2 kids that you're bringing? And the 2 kids that he's bringing is Ephraim and Manasseh. So is the story backwards? So never assume that you know the story, because every time that you look at it, if you look at it with fresh eyes, you're going to see something different. But when I was doing this study here, this verse 7 popped out at me. So then, if we take again, if we do a little word study, pada means table or the hilltop, and Canaan means humiliation. Ephraim means fruitfulness. Ephraim, doubly blessed, and Bethlehem means the house of bread. So if we were to take verse 7, and as soon as I saw it and I did the word study, I started seeing something. But again, the more that you read, the more that he's able to bring into remembrance. And this is the way that I would translate it. For it's for me, when I left my house, when I left my table, the pretty lamb died, or the pure lamb died for my sorrows in the land of humiliation. On the journey of life, when there was still some distance to go to my fruitfulness, to my state of bearing fruit, I'm not, there yet. And I buried her, or I honored her on the way, that is, in the house of bread, or in the table in my new house, in my house of the breaking of bread. When you do the word studies, they pop out at you. If you don't know the Hebrew, then it's difficult for you to see this. But the more that you study the words, and you're over there in the prophets and reading, some of these things will break, and then you'll understand what Paul is talking about, where we are buried with him. You understand the concept that Paul is talking about, and you think it's something new that he's bringing. No. It goes back here. He will bring into remembrance. All Jesus said that he will bring into remembrance when he the Comforter comes. He will bring into remembrance, show you all that I have told you. Okay. The last mention of Jacob is in Malachi, the first chapter of Malachi. And if you know the context of Malachi, then this is important. He says, so you know that in Malachi, he's asking questions. It's the book of questions. And the whole issue with Malachi is this. The people are asking the priest, why aren't we blessed? We're giving you sacrifices. You're offering them unto the Lord, but we're still not blessed. Something is wrong. And so you have to read this in that context. And the Lord says, how have I loved you, says the Lord. But then you're asking me, how have you loved us? And I say, my answer to you is, wasn't Esau Jacob's brother? In other words, weren't they twins? Shouldn't I have loved them equally, declares the Lord? Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, you would have loved them equally. You're just in the things that you do. And then he says, yet I have loved Jacob, but I have hated Saneti, Esau. And some translate that to mean despised. Okay, so I have made his mountains desolation. In other words, he wasn't blessed. Okay, so what is he saying here? What he's saying here, he's talking about the people are asking, why are we not blessed? And the whole issue is because you're not following my instructions in the same way that Esau, that should have inherited, that should have been the first, took it too lightly, the fact that he had a birthright, and he sold it for a bowl of soup. That's what I hate, is in that sense what God is telling you. When I'm giving you something and you take it lightly or you despise it, and at one point he says, you despise my table, you despise my table of sacrifices. You do your own thing. Okay, this is the mention. But Yaakov, who was blessed or could have inherited, still didn't take it. And yet I blessed him over here, and then when he came back and paid. I want to look at that payment. Okay, remember that he made the vow, and he says, of all that you have given me, I will give you a tithe. But there is no record of him giving any tithe to the Lord or to a priest or anything. But he does give an offering to Esau, and this is what I want to look at. Okay, so this is in Genesis 32. He's coming back and he's giving Esau. Now you'll notice it's female, male, female, male, female, male, and then the last part of it is donkeys. I misspelled it. Female donkeys and male donkeys. But I had to kind of shorten it. 200 female goats to 20 male goats. That's 10 to 1. Okay, but you'll notice that all the females are more than the males. And so this offering is an enriching offering, because the female is the one that's going to bear or give him more. If he would have given him all bulls, they would have died eventually. Nothing would have happened. But when he gives this offering, he's given him it's called a generational offering, because the one male to these female goats will produce a non-offspring beyond. Okay, so if we say that he gave him 10%, then basically it would mean that he had 20,000 female goats and he gave him 200. That's 10%. If we say this is what he would have given, if you know the law of Moses, and this is why knowing the instructions, these things will come at you and you'll be able to see, and then you can figure out a way to apply them. Some of these things we can't prove because, like I said, we don't know that how much. We don't know what percentage he gave. We just know what he gave. But I'm just showing you how you can apply the percentages. To me, if he felt like he had stolen from him, then the law of Moses requires that you would have to pay not only the restitution or the original part, but you have to add a fifth part, or 20%. In other words, you have to give him 30%. And if you look at the 30%, if he would have given him, if the 200 would have been 30%, then that means he started out with 14,000, or he actually had less than the 55,000. So to me, if this is a restitutional offering, then it would have been he would have given him 30%. And you can tell, if you read the story, there's a fear that he has. And Esau, when he sees it, says, "Oh my goodness, what great flock you have! Why all of this?" And he says, "It's for you." It's for no. He said, and Esau said, "No. I already have. You don't need to give it to me." But Jacob insists on giving it to him. You see, whether you want to call it fear or whatever, but this man is a humble man. This man has the heart of one that would want to pay it back. Out of fear, it doesn't matter. So to me, the restitutional offering, or in other words, he would have given him 30%. We never see where he gives to the Lord. He gives 10%. But if you know the concept of a restitutional offering, it's to the one that you have offended, not to God, even though God says when you have offended him, you have offended him. But to him, you will give offering the 20% to the priest, and this way, look at the last part of it, the priest shall then make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and it shall be forgiven him. So at this point, Esau forgives him. So now you have a way of applying it. Now the Bible can actually speak to you, but you have to know the instructions, you have to know the Hebrew, and you have to read the story, not by a preaching that somebody gave you that so and so said this and this is the way that you believe, but you have to read the story for yourself. Jacob, to me, again, another just a humble guy. Everything happens to him. He's always deceived. His wives, trade him off for money, for fruit. His sons lied to him, kill his precious son, and Laban tricks him, changes his wages. He says, "You have changed my wages 10 times, and I still stuck with you." This isn't a deceiver. This isn't the heart of a deceiver. This is just a man that God picked, the second, not the first, the second twin that followed after, or was holding on to the heel. So he's not from my understanding of what I read, and it's okay if you disagree, but he's not a deceiver. He's just one that followed after, always running, always feels like somebody's chasing him, and yet God uses him. And to me, this is these humble men, the ones that don't have the answers, but are somehow pursuing something and are always obedient. That's the one that God uses. Okay. God bless you.